Hi everyone, welcome to our very first Stack Overflow and Chrome for Android Hangout. This is the very first time that we've done this. I'm Paul Kinlan. I'd like to introduce Matt Gaunt. Matt, do you want to say hello to everyone?
Hi everyone.
Well done. Cool. So, yeah, this is the first for us at the moment. So what we're trying to do with this show is kind of show you our workflow for how we actually deal with Stack Overflow questions and how we support the community inside Stack Overflow for Chrome on Android and just like Chrome in general. So we're going to do a couple of things. We are definitely going to answer questions live. I say live. We did go through and prepare the answers for quite a lot of these things early today because we didn't want this show just to be full of and yeah, that's a bug. You will see a lot of yeah, that's a bug. But yeah, I think we're going to be quite cool. If you hear in the background today, I got some kids with me just crying. Don't worry about it. It's bedtime and they don't like it. It's fine. But yeah, so we're going to show you our workflow. We're going to show you how we think you should, well, not how you should file issues on Stack Overflow, but what we think is a good process for helping us help you, if that makes sense. Because sometimes it's a little bit hard to work out what you mean. And we'll just kind of walk through that flow of what we do. So, Matt, should we jump straight onto the Stack Overflow questions?
Let's just do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So, you're going to see not my face anymore, which is normally a good thing. So, Stack Overflow, here we go. This is our special tag that we've got. Well, it's not a special tag. It's Google Chrome and Android. They're two separate tags that we've got inside Stack Overflow. And this is actually how we monitor. And my day just normally consists of me just pressing screens like this and then see what happens. So we'll start off. Should we start off with the first one, Matt?
Yeah, let's just do it right from the top.
Right from the top. So this one has actually been closed, I think. But basically the question is, Chrome browser in Android always renames the download file to download.bin. And basically what it's saying is that if the file is over 28 megabytes in size, then it won't respect the name. Now, there are a couple of things that we need to kind of get sorted with this, is that I actually think there's a bug in this. The question's been, I think, closed originally, so we can't really do too much with it. But anyway, the general idea is that there's a thing called a download attribute on Anchor, which if I load up JSBin now, we should see one of the examples that I've done. Sorry, just I can't see the screen properly. File system demo. There we are. Now, if I zoom back in, what you'll see actually isn't the answer to the question, but there's this attribute here called download equals log.txt, and that actually saves the name. Now, the interesting thing that we've got about this is if we go back to this question, and like I can't really answer this question because there's not enough information in this page. There isn't any code. There's just reference to the fact that he uses IIS 7.5, which is fine. But we don't actually understand how the download is initiated. And there's a couple of things that you can do. You can set the content, the disposition basically on the type, if it's coming in from the server. But if it's generated from the client, for instance, you can do things like that anchor attribute that we saw before, download, you can set the name from there. And the thing I wanted to talk about inside this bug in particular is that there has been a bug inside Chrome which is unstable right now. So it's broken in the stable version of Chrome. Where if you give a name in the download attribute, it doesn't actually let you download the file. It starts up the Android download manager, but then just kind of flakes out from there. Now, the really cool thing is if you get the beta, which you can find from Google search, if you get that beta, you'll see it's actually fixed. So if you actually specify a download attribute on your Anchor, you'll see the file is actually been named, and it won't be called download.bin, which is what you get if you don't name the file at the moment. So this one, it might be fixed. I think my kids are getting told off at the moment. So it might be fixed in the latest beta, but we're going to have to check it later on. And unfortunately, we can't really answer this question. So I suppose this isn't a bad question. I know the guy's got a problem. We want to try and help as much as possible, but we can't really do too much with this other than say, you know, it might actually be fixed. Matt, do you have any other thoughts about that one?
No, I must admit, I did actually find it. I think it was a couple of days ago I actually experienced exactly the same thing, so I have the feeling it could be a bug. But
yeah, it could be a bug. And so what we'll do in a minute is we'll try and show you the little bit the process that we go through. Once we know a little bit more, we can actually reproduce the problem. I'm actually going to, we'll tell you what, we'll go into this overlap in slide transition. Now, this is on the other end of a lot of information has been provided to us. You probably see here, there's a lot of list elements and everything. And then he says, like Guy says, if you look at Firebug, the attribute's fine. I'm not too sure why he's using Firebug with Chrome. You can get a lot better integration with Chrome using the DevTools. If you're in the Chrome Canary, you can go to chrome://inspect. And if you've got ADB running, you can actually see your devices and you can actually debug the devices. And I think Matt might be able to show you a little bit of that later on. So this question here is, we can't actually answer this question either, unfortunately, because when you actually go and test the site, I can't actually work out what the problem is. He says, like, basically it doesn't transition exactly correctly. So I think for this type of question, some screenshots would be really cool. I know it's a little bit awkward sometimes to get a screenshot off the phone and on and take a little bit of time, but in this case, I couldn't actually find out what the problem was, so I couldn't actually offer any help, which is a little bit frustrating because we want to really help these guys kind of solve their problems. But the next one actually is a kind of interesting one because we can actually help out on this one. And the question is, I can't open local files from the file system API on my Android phone. So this one is kind of cool because I think Matt, I think this is the one that we got the demo for as well, so we can kind of, oh no, it's not actually, it's later on. There's two questions that are really similar. And essentially, the person wants to be able to take their file from the file system, in this case, using an XML HTTP request, which is kind of cool. So like, they're going to download something from the internet and cache it locally inside, not the database, but the file system API. And the file system API is like a normal Unix-based file system, so you can write data to it and read data from it and kind of iterate through the directories and all the type of file structure that you'd normally expect. The interesting thing about this is I actually think this part of the question is a little bit of a red herring because it's basically saying I need to get the array buffer and save it, and the guy can, well, I say the guy, the person who actually did this bug can actually save it, and we know they can save it because what they're saying is that the file is visible from the actual file system inside Chrome. So if you go to file system Chrome, the URL /persistent, you will actually see the list of files that have been offline cached. Now the interesting thing here is this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Again, because you can see the person is basically saying, I want to save it to a PDF, and then I want to write to it, and then when it's written, we'll save it out. Now, the interesting thing is that this bit here is the actual problem. So the exact error message in English is untitled, download unsuccessful. Now, this, unfortunately, is the bit that we really, really need to know, and we really need to try and debug. And everything above it doesn't particularly help us that much when we're looking at this, other than the fact that we know that the download started notification happens. So there's a couple of things that happen here. And if we go down to my answer, basically, so I answered this about 4 hours ago, is that unstable, it kind of works. In beta, it does work in the sense that the stable version of the Chrome has this attribute problem. So the demo that we saw before, this file system demo, this is the code I recreate. That's my son not liking going to sleep at the moment. So in this demo, basically, in this actual question, we've written this demo to try and log the file. And now, if I press save on the desktop, it's a little bit awkward. You might have seen at the bottom of the screen, there is, there's the log.txt file, which if I open, you're not going to be able to see because I'm sharing the window and not the screen. But it basically says hello world. Now, this works on a desktop, but it doesn't work on the phone in stable. But if you go to the latest beta version of Chrome, you'll find that basically it works now. Now, the way that we answer this question is basically saying, like, you know, it's not the greatest solution. In stable right now, for the majority of your users, there's really nothing that you can do about this problem, unfortunately. But in the beta, it's going to work as expected, and we've given the demo underneath, which kind of shows how it works. Now the interesting thing about this is I would normally raise a bug, but because I know I've raised the bug in the past and it's been fixed.
Paul, it's getting a bit creepy without having your face on screen. I've got to admit, we need to bring you back on, man.
Yeah, do you want to bring me back in? Let me just jump out.
There we go.
The sounds of the crime behind. So anyway, yeah. So we basically find this bug normally, and we raise the bug. And I'll show you how to do that. How we do that in a bit. Actually, it's not that interesting, really. But then we go and find it, and then we'll go and fix it, or get it fixed, or like prioritize and escalate it. Now, so the interesting thing about this is, actually, what is really interesting about this? Yeah, we know it's going to get fixed, and that's all we have to really do is basically say it's going to get fixed, and this answers your question. And if we give a demo to how it's actually going to work, that's going to be great, because the hardest thing actually is parsing out what normally happens inside the JavaScript and HTML from a question and trying to like recreate that in your application. So that's why we've given the link into the JS bin to the actual question.
It's also worth like pointing out that a lot of the times that it simplifies things for us is if we already have like a JS vid or a JS bin like link where someone's gone, here's an example of the problem. So they've literally taken the source code that they would have put in Stack Overflow anyway, but just made sure it's in a small sample. The nice thing with that is often if you're working on a production product, like you can't really put the code in. Whereas JS bin, JS fiddle, it means you can condense everything down to really the core of your problem. And that means we can take that, fork it, play around with it, adjust it, try and sort of diagnose the problems ourselves. And then either come back with a fix or, like you say, we get the opportunity to go and raise a bug, and then we can also point our engineers to that as well.
Yeah, I think that's the most important bit, is that whenever we ask the engineers, they cry like crazy. But then at the same time, as they ask for a reproducible case, and if we give them an entire web page, like an entire application, they can't break down exactly what the problem is. And if you can get a reproducible case, then it really helps engineers actually try and solve the problem. And if you can't get a reproducible case, sometimes it means the actual issue of the logic might be on your side of things. So let me just jump out to the previous question. Oh, that was it. That was the one thing I really, really wanted to mention. Was if you actually notice there's an issue on the desktop but not inside mobile Chrome, or the other way around, there was an issue on the mobile Chrome but not on the desktop, it's normally a bug, right? It's not normally kind of something like different in the spec or kind of in it like anywhere else. It normally is the fact that something is not working as it's expected to work. And a great case is this download thing that we've just seen before, where you want to try and download some data and give it a name, and it just doesn't work on the desktop. It works on the desktop, but doesn't work on mobile. That's a really strong indication that you should raise a bug. Now, the interesting thing, so like normally what happens from this, and I'm just going to jump back to my screen, is that what will happen is we'll go find the bug, but then we'll go to MC, I think. Way around. No, that's not the one. That could have been a really dodgy site. Crow. There we are. Basically what happens is that URL, that really short URL, will take you to the place where you can submit an Android issue. And the template you want to use is Android. And then you just basically give us as much information as possible. The steps to reproduce. Like if you're going to download a file, for instance, you'd say like click on this link. I have this attribute set. It doesn't download the file and those type of things. And then the expected and actual result. The expected result isn't it's going to work. It should work, which was normally what we get. But like if you expect to have a log.txt file produced, say that you should expect to see a log.txt file on your local file system. So that's one of the things we use when we're doing the bug tracking is new.mcr bug, and that's the site which I have no idea what that one was. That was just my typo. So I'm going to jump back to the previous question, the next question. So this one's actually been closed, but I did actually want to answer this one. Will Chrome on Android eventually support Pepper and thus the Flash player? The basic answer, it's not going to happen. Unless some things change internally, it's not going to happen. We want to make sure that all the web pages are completely sandboxed.
And I think given like the way Flash seems to be going on mobile, it doesn't seem like many of the browsers are really supporting it. So it kind of feels like we should be kind of pushing the web forward for kind of more responsive sites. And it doesn't seem like Flash really has much of a place in there at the moment. And
yeah, it doesn't. I mean, that's the easiest way of saying it. But it's not just Flash; it's all the other plugins as well. We can't get the plugins working across all these devices properly. He doesn't like going to bed at the moment. So we can't get all these plugins working across all the devices, and we want it to be a pure open web, and that's the way that we're going at the moment, and that's what we're trying to support. So let me just jump back to the screen because I want to also go to the next question, which I think that we've got a demo for at the moment as well. So there we are. Next question: fetching a blob in Chrome for Android. So Matt, this is the one that we've got a demo for, right?
I believe so. This is the video.
So I'm going to hand across to you in a second on this one. But this is actually really good. This is a really good report actually, because basically it says it works in Chrome for Firefox and desktop and Android, but not on Chrome for Android. And then we get a good description of what's happening. So basically we're requesting the video from somewhere on the web of response type blob, and then we're going to cache it in the local file system. So it's nearly exactly the same as the question that we saw earlier on in the show, but it's a little bit different, because the actual issue here is that once the video has been, or the blob's been taken and made a URL of, we can't attach it to the source, the video element. It works on desktop, but it doesn't work on Android. Now, the interesting thing about this is the answer here is it's a bug. We've replicated the issue, and we found out what the issue is, but we don't have a fix, which is not a nice answer to give people, but unfortunately it's the only answer that we can give in some cases. So Matt, can we just jump onto your screen so we can kind of walk through how we go about testing this?
So if I just jump to my desktop. There we go. So the first step is going to be to go to Chrome Inspect, because that's where we're going to start being able to debug this on the actual device. So you notice here we got a video load.
Cool.
If I hit Inspect on there, and then I'm also going to go. Cool. So what this is doing is actually showing the web page that I currently have on my phone. So if I quickly switch back, I'll actually be able to show you what my phone is doing. Yeah. There we go. Oh no, it's falling apart. There we go. So what you should be able to see is this is Paul's demo that he's put together. And basically all it is it's a simple video page with a link on it, which says load XHR just there. When you click on it, you'll see that the video views actually come in. And the problem is when you hit play, that's actually going to fail to do anything. So this is then comes into the bug. So if I jump to slide share again, so the way we debugged this was if we actually look at the sources for the web page, and I find where we had the JavaScript. This one. Yep. And it was as simple as putting a breakpoint under this video source window URL. So now if I hit refresh on the mobile device, we should get to a point where when I tap the button, there we go. So at that point we're debugging the JavaScript that's running on the mobile device. And I believe this is what Paul used to actually diagnose the issue. Yeah.
So the really nice thing here was that we used a couple of bits of Chrome. So I use TabSync a lot inside Chrome. So I have a desktop, like my desktop instance, and I'll test it, make the JS bin. And in this case, we just literally copied all the code from the actual Stack Overflow question. I had to put my own video in and make it cross and origin enabled, but that's not part of the question, but we just had to do it to make it work properly. So yeah, we copied all the code in, and then I tested it on desktop, and I just had the debugger open, kind of went into it, and it worked. Right, the video gets cached locally or the object gets created, and then attached to the video, and then you can play the video, and it's a nice little video of me smiling and all that type of stuff. So what happened then is that I then open up my device, get my device open, use TabSync so I can just pull the page up straight away rather than typing the URL in, and then just connecting, as Matt showed you a second ago, via the debugger via Chrome Inspect into the device. And then once it was in the device, I basically just tested it to see whether it worked. And everything works exactly the same. So all the events fire, no errors fire at all. So it's not a problem with the JavaScript. But when you press play, literally nothing happens. And if you actually attach a normal video to it, it just plays like normal. So it should work. It's not an unsupported video format that's causing the issue. So it was like we're using WebM, which is fine. So that's pretty much all it was. So we can take this code and then we make a bug. And if you look at the issue that we've raised on the site, or the issue that's on the Stack Overflow site, we've linked it directly to a CR bug that we've created. Now, the CR bug itself might not be the one that the engineer goes off and fixes. They might get it merged with a couple of other issues fixed. But normally, this is what happens when we know that there's some functionality that is missing on the like on the site, for instance, or inside the piece of, inside Chrome and Android. We'll then go and raise the bug because we know there's a difference, and there's not something that we can tell the user or the developer to go off and fix because there isn't actually no other way that they can work around this. And it's unfortunate, really, because the developer can't actually fix their problem. So, like, the answer which tells them it's a bug, unfortunately, right now is the correct answer. And then once we have a fix, we might go back to the issue and then re-edit the answers so that we can say, hey guys, this is now fixed, and this is how we fixed it, and it's nothing to do with you. It's us, not you, basically. So, yeah, there we go. Right. So there were a couple. Right, there are a couple of other questions. Right, let me just jump to another one, which I know that we've got an answer to at least. I'm going to screen share again so everyone can see the question. There we go. So there's a couple here. There's a WebView HTML5 audio length. Unfortunately, so the WebView work is going to take a little bit more time for us to investigate because we need to make an app which uses the Android WebView and then test it out to see if it's working. And there's not a whole lot of code that we can copy and paste inside this, which is going to speed up our diagnosis. So I'm not sure that's going to get answered anytime soon, within like the next couple of hours. But what I really want to bring us to, there's two, like in quick succession on June the 16th about data URLs and base64 encoding and audio, which is really weird. Like normally these two things never happen at the same time, but both these questions have come up. So yeah, this is the following snippet plays well in Chrome. Base64 data, something which we can't replicate because it's specific to their application. But audio.source, the data file, and some base64 encoded data. Now, we got audio player load and audio player play, which are the two functions that you should expect. And again, the person says, hey, this works on desktop, but not on Chrome for Android. So I'm going to jump across to, I think, another question inside JSBin. This is a good advert for JSBin. It's a pretty awesome tool. Here we go. Right on my screen, but this is how I replicated the issue today. So basically, I set up my page with a button that says play, an audio file, and then just put there it is on the page up there. So you can see it there. Now there's a whole bunch of base64 data across here, which is it's a WAV file that's been encoded. And then I basically try and replicate exactly what the guy or the person has actually put in. So if I press play here, I don't know whether you can hear it, but it's actually playing some audio in the background. Now let me just jump out of this demo because there's not a huge amount extra I can show you on the screen. But the interesting thing here, this is another one of those examples where we debug locally, and well, you don't even have to debug too much locally because you can hear the sound getting played. But once we have this reproducible case, we go and then hook it up to the actual device, Chrome Inspect, plug it in, and then I go to my device, my tab, pull it in, pull the sync in, and then get it back up that way. And then we connect the debugger just in case we need it. But because we've loaded the page, I just press play. It's not loading. Now, the thing is, now we've got the debugger connected, I basically go and look at the page to see if all the relevant events fire. They do. So like we know that things are kind of starting to happen a little bit, but like no audio comes out, and it feels very similar to the video issue that we saw before, where you're attaching a different type of URL to the video source element, but it doesn't play. It's again, I think it's going to be in the same type of area. So to cut a long story short, there's not a huge amount I can say about this. Is basically we think there's a bug inside the actual load-in subsystem or the load and play subsystem of Android for Chrome. It's going to be down to an engineer to try and find out exactly what that is at the moment, but the only thing that we can say to developers is, like, we think it's a bug. We've raised an issue with the exact reproducible case that we put in. So the two people who have raised this issue today, the same audio issue, one is a data URI, and one is about base64 encoded. They are actually the same issue when you look at the underlying bits of this. Is that we've basically just said, like, it's a bug, go and track it on this, put in your other use cases if you need to get fixed, and follow it. There's not really much else that we can do. And because the developer wants to generate the audio file on the client side, which is why they generate the data URIs and the base64 encoded URIs, there's not a huge amount that we can do to actually solve this issue at the moment, other than say that. We could suggest that they go and put it on a server somewhere, but it's not quite right. I think we're probably getting close to time. Is that right, Pete?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes left. So we can answer a couple more questions. Matt, I know you were looking at the media.js or media element.js question.
Yeah, so this was just a really simple question, which was essentially, if I open up the website for media element, what had happened was someone had noticed that when they load up the video, there was a button that was basically going to the wrong part of the screen. It was basically wrapping onto another line. And it's one of those things of, it could be perhaps something in the layout that's gone wrong, it could be a hard-coded value. And essentially all it was if you go and look into Chrome Inspect again, so I'll share my screen and inspect my mobile device where I've got the website up, we can actually dig into the source code for the site. And if I start driving down through all these things, where are we? This one. Down here. We start drilling down to the actual controls, I believe. There we go. And what you'll see here is we've got a couple of buttons. So if I switch you guys over to my mobile device, you'll be able to see what I'm actually getting up on my screen when I'm playing around with these. But what you should be able to see is that little white speck in the middle of the blue. That's the full screen button that should actually be just up here on the right hand side. And if I start digging around in the DevTools, what you can start seeing is I actually start highlighting certain elements. So right there is the full screen button, but if I actually move the width of this in DevTools to just be 1 pixel smaller, you'll see that the actual full screen button is just shifted over. And basically this is dead simple to do using DevTools, because all I had to do was just play around with the value here, and that's actually just shifting the pixel off by 1. So it sounds like the problem that's they're getting is just the library is just doing an off by 1 error. So it's a case of either maybe they can commit a patch or something like that. But it's simple enough to do when you've got kind of Chrome Inspect. That's just simple to diagnose.
That's pretty cool. I know we had some conversation as well today about whether this was a Chrome issue or an Android, like a Chrome for Android issue or not. Because I've seen a bug as well in the past where on a non-viewported page, the full screen button is minuscule. So I think there's, like, that's where my confusion was originally when I saw this. Was I was like, it's a Chrome for Android issue, but as you've seen, it's actually a media element.js issue. I suppose we could probably raise the bug. We just have to make a decision about kind of what's going to get the best level of support for developers in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Matt, you could fix it. Cool.
But yeah, this is generally our flow, isn't it? When it comes to fixing bugs, it's a case of taking the code and assessing what's wrong.
Yeah.
Whether it's us or whether it's something else.
Yeah, it's like at the moment. I think I suppose to wrap up in a way. This Stack Overflow has become one of our primary mechanisms for supporting developers, and we have to make a decision. Like Chrome for mobile hasn't got its own tag, and then what we find is that developers will have Google Chrome as one tag and then Android as another, and we found that there's a good like intersection of those questions that we can actually support directly for developers in that sense. So we have like a team of our developer advocates and engineers who we take it on like a rotation to actually start answering and making sure that we're trying to get as much support as possible for developers out there on this, because we're not dedicated completely to support, if that makes sense. Like we've got a lot of other kind of issues, but we want to make sure that all the developers who actually have questions we can answer in a reasonable time, so that the Chrome for Android platform is the best one that you can develop on. Yeah, so if you do have any questions that you want to get answered, we're trying to bootstrap the community on Stack Overflow to get more and more people answering those questions. But I think for the foreseeable future, it'll be me, Matt, Jake, Chris Wilson, and Pete, and a couple of other people as well, just kind of like providing the support to make sure it's there, because Chrome for Android is a new product. It probably has got some bugs, and we want to help you kind of work around them or fix your products in case it isn't a bug, and it's fixing logic. But right now, today, there's been 3 bugs raised to the Chrome team because of the questions that came through Stack Overflow. So yeah, I think that's it. Matt, do you have anything else before we finish?
No, I'd just say it's just ridiculously useful for us also to kind of find these weird quirks that you guys are experiencing, because it means that we can find ways to fix them and then also feed them back.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can help us help you, more code and samples if we can. But if not, we'll just delve down and dig down into the problem.
Yeah.
Cool. So thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.